Joyce. Hello. I was just going to try and do a little cut and paste thing. This is set in the Midlands. Set in the East Midlands, and a place that some of you might know very well, which is the outwards of Charnwood Forest. And in the spring there are beautiful, I mean overwhelming bluebell-woods, and recommend a walk there any time. So the story is that this young girl, this 16-year-old girl, has run away from her boyfriend, and she's hiding in the bluebell woods. And in doing so, she's trampled the flowers, which you all know is something that we should not do, because they're associated with fairy lore. The scent from the bluebells was overwhelming, but it was also giving me a kind of peace, a serenity. I stopped thinking about Richie. I stopped thinking about what was happening inside me. I walked amongst the bluebells again, and I must have known that by treading them underfoot, I was releasing more of that strange perfume into the air. After a while, I found a rock covered in brilliant green moss and orange lichen. I sat amongst the bluebells and put my head back on the mossy pillow of the rock. The bluebells made such a pool that the earth had become like water, and all the trees and bushes seemed to have grown out of the water, and the sky above seemed to have fallen down onto the earth floor. And I didn't know if the sky was earth or the earth was water. I had been turned upside down. I had to hold the rock with my fingernails to stop me falling into the sky of the earth, or the water of the sky. But I couldn't hold on, and I know I went soaring. I felt unburdened, lighter. I sat back with my head against the moss. The twittering of the birds died down, and it seemed like all of the woods became silent. I might have fallen asleep. But even if I did, I woke up with a start when I heard someone coming through the woods towards me. It was a man on a pretty white horse, making his achingly slow way along the bridle path. There follows a seductive conversation. "So where is it you live?" I asked again. He pointed vaguely to the west and told me he lived exactly on the county border, and I assumed he meant on the county border between Leicestershire and Derbyshire or Nottinghamshire. He said where he lived there was a stream, and you could stand astride the stream with 1 foot in one land and 1 foot in the other. He told me he had a house by a pool, and that it had no electricity or television because he didn't like those things. He said he preferred to live by the sun and the moon, and by the light on the water. "That's beautiful," I said, "like poetry." "Perhaps one day you'll come and see my house, Tara," he said, smiling. "I never told you my name," I said. "But yes, you did." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "No, I didn't." He got up and walked away from me. I thought he was perhaps offended, but he'd gone to fetch his white horse. After a moment, he led the animal back through the bluebells towards me. There he stood, holding the reins, just looking at me. "Well, do you or don't you?" he said. "Do I or don't I what?" "Do you or don't you want to see the light on the water?" I was able to answer in a beat. "I do." I know I should have refused his offer. Then things would have been different. Then there would have been no trouble. But there are times in life when a door opens and you are offered a glimpse of the light on the water. And you know that if you don't take it, that door slams shut and maybe forever. Maybe you fool yourself into thinking that you had a choice after all. Maybe you were always going to say yes. Maybe refusing was no more a choice than is holding your breath. You were always going to breathe. You were always going to say yes. "Then up you get," he said. There was no saddle on the horse. It was just a dusty red blanket. He blinked at me and smiled, and I got up and went over to the horse, and he dropped the reins and locked his fingers together for me to step into the palms of his hands. Then I was up on the horse's back, the big straw panniers swinging at either knee. He led the horse through the bluebells and onto the bridle track. There he walked me through the woods without a word. After a while the track became a bit wider, and there he stopped the horse and leapt up behind me. He reached for the reins and I could smell his manly smell again, and the smell of the horse. He reached a hand in front and placed it on my belly, and I felt a terrible excitement. "Is that comfortable for you?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "that's comfortable." Then we do go.